Hello, BookTube. I've got a little mail for you today on an absolutely beautiful Monday. Just beautiful. The weather these days, now that David Murphy has left Boston, the oppressive cloud of rain has left with him, the weather is just beautiful. Warm, but not hot during the day. Cool, but not cold at night. Just lovely. Apparently, a precursor to yet another solid week of rain. Certainly, we're not going to be in a drought for the first part of summer here in the Boston area. I can tell you that. If the weather is true, I didn't believe it when I looked at the forecast for the week of David's visit. I didn't believe that it was 10 solid days of rain. And it's looking like another solid week of rain. I don't believe it now any more than then, but I won't turn it down. But we've got some mail. And also a new book arrival. A book that I plucked out of a little free library while I was out walking with the bean. I found this, which I have never read. This is by Gary Jonathan Bass, and it is called Stay the Hand of Vengeance, The Politics of War Crime Tribunals. And you've got Nuremberg on the bottom there and Milosevic on the top. And this came out, I was curious about this because it's blurbed all over, and I thought, well, how could you possibly have missed this? And I did miss it. And the reason I missed it is because it came out in 2002 when I was not reviewing books. So I probably missed a lot of books then. I'm going to read this tonight. It's going on the reading for tonight. It is a study of war crimes tribunals, their justification, I'm sure their morals, and also, of course, their politics. And I have sharp opinions on this subject, so this author will either convince me or he won't. I feel certain that he is, judging by the title, I feel certain that I know where he stands on the subject, which is that war crimes tribunals are necessary. Because vengeance is, in and of itself, in all cases, across the board, wrong. I hope not. I hope that's not the only thing I get in here. The attitude that I've seen towards war crime tribunals, or even murder trials, where the guilt of the accused is beyond question. Usually, the quibbling that I see about such things is just, at heart, disguised, sometimes not even disguised, God-bothering. The Bible, the holy book, the good book, the book that you were introduced to before you were introduced to anything else, heard from before you heard from anything else, says, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." Directly implying that society, human society, should not take vengeance, and that makes it evil. But God doesn't exist. And if you take him out of that equation, you are left floundering when it comes to a God-bothering reason to say that vengeance is in and of itself always wrong. Of course it's not. Of course it's not always wrong. But quite apart from the question of vengeance, vengeance is tampering with the pool. It's prejudging the equation. What we're talking about here is justice. And if you call it vengeance, you of course are playing to the tear ducts and the lymph nodes of all the people in your readership or in your audience who also grew up with that book that says, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." But there is no Lord. So, okay, all right, okay, well, once you take him as a Jenga piece out of the equation, then you are left with the question of whether or not a society has the right to kill a member of society that kills other members of society. Or, in the case of this cover, wages whole-scale homicidal war on other members of the society. And the answer to that question is, of course, yes. Of course, yes. The absolute posturing, moralizing farce of taking someone who is guilty of thousands of premeditated deaths and making sure he gets 3 meals a day and making sure he has a lawyer and making sure he's in court and making sure we follow the absolute iota of the law to prosecute him. The absolute moral posturing farce of such a thing. The very first MP that found Milosevic should have put 10 rounds in his head. Every one of those men in that dock at Nuremberg should have simply been executed. Not by a tribunal, not after a court case in which they might get off or get a prison sentence, which is 100,000 times better and more humane than any of the fates they ever dealt out to the innocents they killed, the families they ruined, the whole societies they ruined, the whole villages they extirpated. Not that. Not that. No, instead, you find somebody who's wearing the uniform or has it stashed away because he's just taken it off, put 6 rounds in his head. You, a corporal. Don't wait for your commanding officer to do it, simply kill him. Kill him like you would a rat in the floorboards. Instead of this whole big farce where they get to look noble, these monsters should not get to look noble. If they're alone in a dock and they've got maybe one lawyer and there's a team of lawyers on the other side and the whole government apparatus coming down on them, they look like the victim. They look noble. And they shouldn't. They shouldn't get a chance to do that. It isn't Saddam Hussein's end that these monsters should get. It's Gaddafi's end. You can film it in both cases. But we're not talking a bearded butcher with a hangman's noose around his neck defiantly shouting his principles to a video filming world in the last second of his life. We're not talking that. We're talking a dazed and bloody, ruthless dictator getting a pipe rammed right up where it belongs and being torn apart by a mob, and then having his torn apart, bloated, sun-infused body viewed until it was no longer possible for a human with a sense of smell to go anywhere near it. All filmed. If you want the choice between the two, you want Gaddafi. And you certainly don't want this. You certainly don't want a well-dressed defendant standing there defiantly saying, nobly saying, well, I don't think you can prove that I did anything. Screw you. Disprove this bullet coming for your face. Anyway, as you can see, I have strong opinions on the subject. They are not shared by most people. We will see if this author can jelly me out of them. Maybe he can. He has blurbs on that book for some mighty powerful thinkers. And I know some mighty powerful thinkers who don't agree with me at all. Some of them have been on this channel. So I have strong opinions, but that's not a bar to reading a book. If he can convince me, he can convince me. That's all there is to it. But now we'll open some mail, which once again I want to point out, I want to stress that we need not call this a book haul. All these little popgun Potemkin nations trying to compete with me in the book haul wars. We won't call this a book haul. We don't need to. So what is this next one? All right, so this is new. This comes out in late August. It unfortunately continues the trend of bland, boring, or bad covers for U.S. books. This is, it's a debut. This is Addie Kitchen's debut novel, Dominion. And the cute thing here is that it's a snake, and at the end of the snake's tail is a church. Let's see here. I can and will in a moment rave to you myself about this electrifying book and writer, but why not first hear from other people? And then you list other people. But in this case, I'd rather hear from you. Book publicists have a whole roster of books that they have to represent in every season. And the simple truth is, I don't think they're very ashamed to say it. The simple truth is they can learn about those books. They can certainly learn the selling points, but they don't have the time to get to all of them. And they also have the courtesy to never admit when some of the ones they do get to are only so-so. It's a whole bunch of people at the publishing house that make the decision to pick a book and pay the author to publish it. It's not the publicists who make that decision. So they take what comes down the pike to them. So when a publicist goes out of their way, as a lot of them do to me privately, goes out of their way to say, this one I really loved, that's more valuable to me than people who are blurbing this thing who might not have read it. So let's move on and let the publicist talk about it. In the case of Addie Kitchens, the answer to that question, which is where did this writer come from, is southern Mississippi. Oh, my sympathies. Good Lord. The setting of this novel's titular town. Dominion, let's not do that. Let's put a permanent moratorium on place names acting as part of the plot. Okay. Dominion is the story of a small southern black community oriented around a charismatic but rather roguish, to put it mildly, preacher, and a scandal involving his oldest son, a scholar and star athlete who, like his father, the Reverend, is not as he appears for reasons I don't want to spoil here. The misdeeds of these men set in motion a story of secrets, crime, church banquet gossip, sex, power, parental hypocrisy, teenage audacity, and the eternal guiding hand of patriarchal control. But even more compelling than this story's twists and turns, including a whiplash-inducing one about halfway through, are the two women who love these men, Priscilla, the Reverend's wry, long-suffering wife, and Diamond, a gimlet-eyed, witheringly funny, endlessly quotable high school senior. Priscilla and Diamond are this book's unforgettable narrators and its center of gravity. It's through their eyes that we see a congregation in all of its imbalances of power, money, labor, and shame. Yeah, this was written by a fan of the book. What follows is a story that reveals the costs for a community and a world that hand men power and women responsibility. Okay, all right, I am all for it. This comes loaded with preliminary blurbs. Okay, great. A debut fiction. I love debut fiction anyway, so that's wonderful. It doesn't come out until August, so I don't need to think about it for a while. But I'm glad to have it. That's great. Southern Mississippi fiction. Wow. Deep South. Let's see. And a debut, too. How wonderful. I mean, imagine the possibilities. Something in the water down in the South produces literary genius. I'm not willing to deny that. Oh, these are, by the way, my new artwork. That is a stately stare at a library, and there are some grizzly bears. I got them both for dirt cheap while David and I were out thrifting. So, very good. Okay. All right. I was wondering if I was going to get this thing. I did. Oh, wow. It has a big schedule for the author's appearance. Boy, those disappeared during COVID, and I didn't think they'd ever make their way back. Okay. So, but I want a pub sheet. There we go. Okay. This comes out at the end of the month. This is by Martha Hall Kelly, and it is called the Martha's Vineyard Beach and Book Club. And the author, I'm told, is beloved by fans for her immersive novels that transport readers to the past. She wrote Lilac Girls. Probably a lot of you have read Lilac Girls. And this is her 5th novel, and her most personal work to date, as she based the narrative on many aspects of her mother's heritage. The novel discloses the true, little-known history of what took place on the island, that's the island of Martha's Vineyard, during the war. The German U-boats were cruising the surrounding waters, and Nazi spies were sneaking ashore. At the novel's center are 2 sisters who start a book club that changes history, stoking the movement in their tight-knit community to hold strong against the German invaders. The story unfurls via dual timelines to reveal a contemporary mystery that can only be solved by the learning about the past. In other words, an extremely popular narrative gimmick. The dual narrative thing is extremely popular. In 2016, grief-stricken by her mother's passing, Mary Starwood visits Martha's Vineyard to meet artist Elizabeth Devereaux and uncovers a surprising link to the Smith sisters, Cadence and Briar, whose lives were shaped by the war. In 1942, the sisters balanced the challenges and rewards of running a farm and making ends meet, a wartime romance, and the growth of their book club, until a mysterious man arrives and changes the course of their lives. And the author says that her mother's family settled on the vineyard and started farming there in 1891. That's great. That's just fantastic. I wanted to depict an authentic Martha's Vineyard that's not necessarily known by people who may consider it an elitist vacation destination. Fantastic. Okay, well, obviously, the number one thing that comes to my mind when I see this is maybe I can review it for the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, the paper on Martha's Vineyard. Maybe I can do that. I will definitely put it to my editor and see what he says. Great. Okay, and that can go on the pile for tonight as well. Let's see. What is this next one? Another finished copy. Steve likes finished copies. What is this next one from the great folks at Princeton University Press? What have we got here? Oh, great. Okay. This is a June release. Yeah, this is the finished copy of Andrew Porwanker of his book, American Maccabee, Theodore Roosevelt and the Jews. A scion of the Protestant elite, Theodore Roosevelt was an unlikely ally of the waves of impoverished Jewish newcomers who crowded the docks at Ellis Island. Yet from his earliest years, he forged ties with Jews never before witnessed in a president. This book traces his deep connection with the Jewish people at every step of his dazzling ascent, and it also reveals a man of contradictions, whose checkered approach to Jewish issues was no less conflicted than the nation he led. I wonder if the pub sheet is going to talk about any of the conflicts. Theodore Roosevelt cultivated a bond with the Jewish community unprecedented in the history of American presidency. This is the first to reveal Roosevelt's deep ties to Jews, drawing on sources never before used in TR scholarship. His presidency coincided with a dual crisis for Jews, massacres overseas and American anti-Semitism, that assumed outsized significance in the U.S. domestic and foreign policy. The Jewish perspective on Roosevelt reveals a complex president whose self-contradictions embodied the nation's own. Anti-Jewish violence abroad raised difficult questions for Roosevelt about America's proper role in world affairs. Okay. I'm going to go all David Murphy on you, and I'm naturally wondering about Franklin Roosevelt, whose record with the Jews involved sitting back and doing nothing while they were massacred by Hitler. I wonder, now that I've got a finished copy, let's see how many entries Franklin Roosevelt has, if any. I'm assuming he has a lot. Let's see here. No. Okay. Well, I'm doing this on the fly because we're in a video together. It doesn't look to me like Franklin Roosevelt has a single mention in here. That can't be. Maybe it's under Roosevelt or something like that. That can't be. You can't do a subject like that. It's so glaring. I'm not saying that if you were to say, what is the Adams family's relationship with the Dutch community, you want to talk about John Quincy Adams, I'm not saying that you would have to go, down the line to the Civil War era in a subject like that. Here it's pretty glaring. There's no way the author doesn't mention it. So, but it doesn't come out until June. Maybe I can get to it tonight. We haven't actually exhausted my reading limit for tonight, so maybe I can. And then this final thing, which is a box, a great big box, and not only a box, but a box from my favorite publisher, W.W. Norton. So let's see. It's heavy too, which is great. Let's see what we have here. Maybe it's a big finished copy of something. That would be wonderful. Get these invoice stuff out of the way. Ooh. Oh no, it's 2 books. That's why it was so heavy. Oh my. Okay. All right, the first one. I'm assuming since they came together, they're not going to have pub sheets. No. The first one, I think we've already seen both of these. This is the finished copy of Paul Lockhart's book, The Mending of Broken Bones, A Modern Guide to Classical Algebra. I laugh only because the publishing industry routinely comes out with books like this, attempting to popularize and de-terrify math, any kind of math. And I dutifully read them. I dutifully read them all. And none of them have ever succeeded. Some of them have come close. Once Upon an Algorithm, What Algorithms Want, a couple of others, but mostly not. Mostly not. But I have the advanced copy of this, and I have not given this a try. See, equations, equations I don't get along. But let's read about this for anybody that maybe missed its original appearance. For many of us, algebra conjures up memories of dull classes spent wondering when we'd ever have to solve a system of equations or factor a polynomial. Indeed, most of the time, if we need to plan a budget or figure out how early to leave the house for work, common sense or a quick seat-of-the-pants approximation is good enough. No, that's all the time. That's not most of the time. That's all the time. But as a mathematician, Paul Lockhart argues in this book, once we stop thinking of algebra in terms of its practical applications, we can appreciate it for the beautiful and gratifying subject that it is. In his hands, algebra is the delicate craft of untangling numerical puzzles to reveal the hidden patterns and often surprising behaviors of the numbers themselves. Well, it will all depend on how good a job this author does. I mean, I'm not meaning to slight the other authors who have tried. I think you need to have a fairly good familiarity with algebra to get anything out of this book. I don't think that's an unfair assumption. I think you need to know algebra fairly well, and I don't. And I doubt I ever will. So who is Paul Lockhart when he was home? I can read about you now that I have the finished copy. He is the author of a bunch of books on math. He's a repeat offender. After a career as a research mathematician at Brown University and the University of California, Santa Cruz, he spent 2 decades teaching algebra at St. Anne's School in Brooklyn. Okay, well, he has a long experience teaching the subject, so maybe he will be the one that does it. And then we have the finished copy of something that is in my wheelhouse. The algebra thing leaves me cold, but I'll try it anyway. We have this thing by Zachary Leader, Elmans Joyce, which is the biography of Elman's 5-volume biography, or Elman's big, fat 1-volume biography of James Joyce, which is a classic, is a classic work of biography. I don't deny that. When I got the advance copy of this thing, I think this is a May release. The Mending of Broken Bones might be a May release too. I need to get to this. I'm going to write about this. And when I got the advance copy of this, I immediately mentally said, the Brattle will provide. The Brattle is my used bookstore here in Boston, and they have a huge turnover, gigantic turnover. And I see battered copies of Elmans Joyce there all the time. So I thought, the next time you go, keep an eye out for it. I would just ignore it. Ordinarily, I read it. I'm not a fan of Joyce. I don't like the author at all. I don't like the man either. Not that you need to like the man to like the book, but I don't like either. And sure enough, the very next time I went to the Brattle, there was a $1 hardcover there with a dust jacket. So I cleaned it up. I put a cover on it and reread it. I reread Elmans Joyce for the first time in I don't even know how long. 10 years at least. And it was an amazing reading experience. It's right up there on the shelf. I'm going to be pulling when it comes time to write about this. I think I'll do it probably this coming week. I have a lot to say about what Leader says about that book. It's going to be fun to do, and I'm hoping it has already started. But I'm hoping that this produces a lot of great pieces. I don't need to like James Joyce to enjoy those pieces. Every single person in the book chat world, every single man in the book chat world has a million bloaty old anecdotes to tell about their encounters with Joyce. This is a perfect opportunity. Every book section editor who has a commissioning budget will be running their fingers through their Rolodexes trying to find such a person. Probably the book reviews that will arrive this week will be loaded with pieces about this. I think it's guaranteed to generate them. So what have we got here? Richard Elmans' James Joyce, first published in 1959, was hailed by Anthony Burgess as the greatest literary biography of the 20th century. The 20th century was barely halfway done when Burgess said that. Maybe he meant the first half of the 20th. He obviously meant the first half of the 20th century. I think it's been beat since then a couple of times. Frank Kermode thought the book would, quote, fix Joyce's image for a generation. A prediction that was, if anything, too cautious. The biography won the National Book Award and durably secured Joyce's standing as a preeminent modernist. Elmans Joyce, this book, provides a biography of a biography, exploring how Elman came to his subject, gained the cooperation of Joyce's family and estate, shrewdly, doggedly collected vital papers and interviews, placated publishers, thwarted competitors, and carefully balanced narrative with literary analysis. Ooh, there's plenty of literary analysis in the book, definitely. Elmans Joyce, this book, also removes the veil from the biographer, richly rewarded in public, admirable in private life, but also possessed of a startling secret life. A renowned biographer himself, Zachary Leader constructs a powerful argument not only in support of Elman's intellectual and artistic claims, but also on behalf of literary biography generally. In the process, he takes readers on a rare tour through the mid-century publishing houses of New York and London, as well as the corridors and classrooms of elite universities from Yale to Oxford. The influence of Elman's book, recognized instantly, persists to this day among literary scholars and Joyce fans alike. That admirable in person bit, that's going to take some doing. But great. I'm glad to have a finished copy of this, absolutely. So we have Elmans Joyce in the finished copy. We have The Mending of Broken Bones, a book about algebra. We have American Maccabee, about Theodore Roosevelt and the Jews. I think all of these are finished copies of May releases. We have the Martha's Vineyard Beach and Book Club, one of those dual narrative quasi-historical books, and Dominion, a debut novel from the Deep South. Plus this thing, Stay the Hand of Vengeance. Why? Is my question. Why? If you're sure of the guilt of the accused, then why stay the hand of vengeance? And you're going to say, well, we don't want to sink to their level. If we do that, we're no better than they are. But that's all a screen. It boils down to because the Bible tells me so. And it ought not to. But in my opinion, we'll see if this author can change my mind. So a lot of stuff to read tonight. I have basically shaped my night's reading, my afternoon, evening, and night's reading. So good, great. So we'll wrap up this mail haul for now. This is a good way to start a Monday. Fairly solid mail haul to start a Monday. So I'll wrap this up, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.